Greetings. This is Len Gilbert, and thankfully I'm still on YouTube. So I've been wanting to talk about alternate platforms, alternate furry platforms on the internet, and why you need to take them seriously and why you need to get on an alternative platform if you are a right-leaning furry of any kind, or even just an apolitical furry at this point. Things are getting pretty bad. I would argue that most of us at this point have the moral obligation to start going to alternate websites and alternate platforms and putting your creative stuff on there and forming communities there. And I'd like to explain why. So let's start by identifying the biggest furry websites and furry platforms and why they are the worst offenders. Really, there are about 5 or 6 furry websites and platforms that I can name offhand that we shouldn't be giving our priorities to right now. We should be avoiding when possible. I'm not going to name all of them because some of them are too small to even bother. But the two big ones are, of course, Fur Affinity and Twitter, which Twitter has kind of become the #1 place for furry activity. Those are the two that I want to concentrate on. And I'll start with Fur Affinity. Fur Affinity I've actually liked Fur Affinity for a long time. I've endorsed Fur Affinity. I've told people for months and months, if not years, that Fur Affinity is still a place to get a fair shake at if you're a right-leaning furry. But unfortunately, I can no longer say that. And here's why. Recently, Fur Affinity and Dragoneer specifically, put out a new rule saying that I don't know, I'm not going to say exactly, I'm not going to give the exact verbiage, but in effect, it said no hate symbols, no racism in a non-fictional sense. And of course, we all know what that really means. It means that they're going to allow hate from the left and allow racist symbols from the left and selectively silence the right. And sure enough, there was some disagreements about that. Some people didn't, some die-in-the-wool conservatives didn't think that was going to happen and argued with me, but that is, of course, how it did happen, because Dragoneer, the admin of Fur Affinity, later on Twitter explicitly said that the ban was on so-called KKK and so-called Nazi groups on Fur Affinity, of which there are very few. I, of course, feared that that term would be expanded to include all kinds of other people on the right that they wanted to silence, and of course, that's exactly what's happened. The biggest example would be with Foxler's armband. The Furry Raiders armband is not a hate symbol in the strict definition, but of course, Dragoneer is not going by the strict definition. He's using it as a pretext to get rid of people he doesn't like. So a number of people who had pictures with Foxler's armband on, with the Furry Raiders armband on, were suspended permanently and had their accounts revoked because it was quote-unquote a hate symbol. As an aside, this is probably also why months ago Dragoneer sided with parties that were conspiring to assault Foxler at the biggest little FurCon. He made Twitter comments saying that it was quote-unquote the community saying no to hate and fascism and whatnot, when in fact that wasn't what it was. It was a mob of about a dozen or so mentally unstable people who were enacting violence at a convention, and it went on to go ahead and actually assault Foxler at BLFC. Dragoneer endorsed that. That's what Dragoneer believes in. That was kind of the writing on the wall that things were getting worse and worse at Fur Affinity. So I can no longer endorse Fur Affinity. In fact, Fur Affinity has become a place that I don't post on anymore, and I recommend that you not post there either. We have a moral responsibility not to support people like Dragoneer. We have a moral responsibility not to support places like Fur Affinity. If you're on the right, if you're a furry and you're on the right, or if you're possibly apolitical or whatever, you have a moral responsibility not to support people like Dragoneer. You have a moral responsibility to stay away from fur affinity, because what you're doing is you're giving your eyeballs and your creativity to someone who wants to shut you up. Like I said, there are smaller ones that are doing the same thing. They're not really, I can briefly mention them. Furry is one of them. Furry Network is another one, and Weasel. I generally avoid those because they're just as bad. And also Twitter. Of course, Twitter is not an explicitly furry platform by any means, but it is the biggest platform of furry activity. These platforms and websites are out to get us. There's no way around it anymore. It's explicit in some cases, and very implicit in many others, such as Twitter. By going there, we're funding our own destruction, and we are helping people who are trying to shut us up. And so we do have a moral responsibility to look for and support other platforms and other websites which share our values and will help us out actively. In the long run, that's going to benefit us the most. Here's what I intend to do. I am on Twitter. I still talk on Twitter, not as much as I used to, but I'm still there, and I do still have an FA account. I don't use it all that often, but I'm going to at the very least stand my ground on fur affinity. But here's what I do, and here's what I recommend others do. I put my new content first on one of 3 platforms that I actively endorse. And I'd like to go over 3 of those right now. So, the first one I'd like to endorse might be a little controversial, and that is Ink Bunny. Ink Bunny is probably the biggest furry website alternative to Fur Affinity. It's probably the best organized, and it's probably the second best place to do art. The reason I recommend Ink Bunny is because Ink Bunny has not changed its terms of service to become more like the other ones. They do actually have an explicit, or maybe not an explicit, but at least an implicit commitment to free speech. I've heard some good things from the admin and the founder, Green Reaper. And so I really do think that Ink Bunny is worth a chance, or at least I thought it was worth a chance. And it's been confirmed that Ink Bunny's actually pretty good as of late. The reason I say that is because if you're familiar with an artist that goes by the name of Rory Raccoon, he kind of makes cartoony, cute, kind of babyish stuff. And he recently made a piece of art with his character on it that said to the effect that he doesn't really believe in transgenderism in its current politicized form today. I don't remember exactly what he said. I might be able to put it up on the screen, but he didn't believe in it, and as you might expect, a number of social justice warriors on there went completely bananas and started actively and in an organized fashion began demanding Rory Raccoon be suspended, to which the co-founder and co-admin of the site got in and said, no, we're not going to do it. If you don't like it, if you don't like his opinion, just block him. Which to me confirms what I wanted to know about Ink Bunny. You're okay on Ink Bunny. If you're alt furry, you're probably going to be okay on Ink Bunny as long as you're not harassing anybody. And 98% of the time, we don't really do that anyway. So as long as you're not harassing anybody, your opinions are fine. Ink Bunny does not go along with the idea that your opinions are harassment, like Fur Affinity and most of the other furry websites do. So Ink Bunny's fine. Ink Bunny's great. That's all that I ever ask, by the way. That's all that I ever ask from the admins of a furry website. The controversial side about Ink Bunny, as many of us might know, is the pedophilic cub fur art issue. Ink Bunny got started because Fur Affinity banned sexualized cub fur stuff. So the core of Ink Bunny are people who do sexualized baby fur stuff. That's a big negative in my opinion. I wish that cub art, which is sexualized art of furry characters, usually pre-adolescent and lower, for those who don't know, I wish that it would be banned from all furry websites, and it is banned from many, but Ink Bunny is one of them that does not. I disagree with Ink Bunny's stance on this, but it's as negative as it is and as bad as the stench of that is, you can always block those people. You can always disassociate with those people. And just because you're on, if I were to sit here and say just being on the same platform of them makes you an accomplice to it, well, that's would be every bit as bad as the social justice warriors for a different reason and perhaps a more noble reason, but it's still just as bad. You don't have to be on the same platform to endorse it. So I intend on going on Ink Bunny. I haven't been on Ink Bunny yet, but I will be setting up an account there. There are some pretty neat, interesting people there. Rory Raccoon is there. He's probably my favorite artist on that website. Sonic Tweaker is there. Sonic Tweaker, he's the guy who made the Sonic Megamix series, Sonic the Hedgehog Megamix, which I loved. I think Tweaker's super talented. And then, of course, there is Rocket Sune. He's he's a fruitcake and a total nut job. And he also pees in a litter box container. And he has this obsession with alt furry. He follows us around, follows me around all the time, tags along on Twitter. And so, if you're an alt furry and you go to Ink Bunny, Rocket Sune will probably hit you up a couple of times at least. And yes, I'm not joking. He really actually does pee in a litter box container. So you have that to look forward to. The next site that I'd like to endorse is Minds.com. I like Minds. Minds is, if you don't know, it's like an alternative. It's like an alternative to Facebook, but with some really cool features that I enjoy using on a daily basis, and I do use on a daily basis. I'm actually there. The furry presence on Minds is very small. What happened with Minds is that a lot of alt-right and right-wing people migrated to Minds. It wasn't an explicitly alt-right or right-wing site, but it just a lot of those folks migrated there because of their commitment to free speech. So Minds.com, the furry presence there is rather small. Most of the furries who are there are alt furries who I pounded the table. And there was one point where I was insisting that everybody get a Minds account. So there's about 70 or 80 of us there. And there's a couple of luminaries who are there also. Perry Rhodes, if you're familiar, has been a furry raider for the longest time. And Pointed Commentary is there, otherwise known as Roy Calbeck. He's a guy with thousands of. He's kind of, I guess, kind of like a grassroots conservative type, but also a furry, which is kind of a rare combination, but a good one. He's had thousands of followers on Fur Affinity until Fur Affinity kicked him off. So he'll post on Minds also. And one other thing is the thing that I like about Minds is the ability to do a right-wing outreach if you're a furry. You'll be able to outreach to non-furries who are right-wing on Minds.com, and they're actually pretty receptive, which is not how it used to be. I will say that. Most right-wing people, especially alt-right people, don't want anything to do with furry stuff. Even if it is alt-furry, they think it's a joke, and they don't. Most of the time they don't want anything to do with it. As if you've had any experience with that, you might know that. But it's actually Minds.com gives us an opportunity to reach out to those people and get our content across their computer screen without them hearing some kind of prejudiced narrative about how all furries, do this and that. that's why I really like Minds, and I've had a good bit of success in that regard. The other thing I like about Minds is the boost function. I love that feature, the boost feature. If you browse Minds, you get points by the hour. They'll give you points. And once you get enough points, you can use those points to boost your post. So say, for example, if I have 1,000 points, I can boost a post that I made. And in exchange for those 1,000 points, you get 1,000 guaranteed views, which is really cool. I think that's a really interesting feature. And it's been very useful for me in terms of reaching out to people who aren't furry, who think that, the furry subculture is just a cesspit of garbage and leftism, which is not entirely true. So Minds.com, I really recommend it. I think you'll like it. Our presence there is really small, but I really think you'll like it if you check it out. And finally, I'd like to, of course, endorse Furry Speech. Furry Speech is the newest kid on the block as far as furry platforms, furry social media platforms and websites. It was founded by Blumir, who was one of our staff at the old Alt Furry Discord server. Blumir has since moved on to create his own project. He has his own Discord server and his own platform, Furry Speech, which I fully 100% support. It's a small platform right now, but it is growing. There's about 300 plus of us there. As you might imagine, Alt Furry dominates that. The interface of Furry Speech is very smooth. It's very intuitive. It kind of feels like social media. It's kind of like, the best way to describe it would be like like something of a mix between Facebook and Twitter. It's very intuitive. It works very well. It's easy to use, and it goes by very smoothly. There's not a whole lot of conversation going on Furry Speech. Like I'm finding that we don't really use it to converse all that much. Most of the discussion between alt furries is going on a handful of Discord servers right now. So there's not a whole lot of socialization and chat on Furry Speech, but there is a good amount of art. A lot of us put our art there. And I put my art on Furry Speech before I put it anywhere else. So it's a good place for that. I see a couple of people advertising their art, a couple of people I know advertising their commission services, and I think it would be a great place. If you're an artist and you're looking for a little extra business, I think this would be a great place to go. I think you might find it a pretty darn good place to do business. It's small, but it has lots of potential. I guess if I could sum Furry Speech up in one way. And of course, as you may be able to tell from the name, they do value free speech. They basically have the same values that we do. And there's one other thing that I do want to endorse, and that's Discord. As I mentioned, Discord is where most of us alt furries are talking right now. And that trend was started by me setting up Alt Furry Discord, the old Alt Furry Discord server. As of right now, there are actually several Discord servers that right-wing furries are using, including alt furries. There's several, which is great. I think that's fantastic, so that there's competition. If somebody doesn't like the way one server is being run, they can still go to another Discord server without dropping out of the alt furry ecosystem, which I think is fantastic. I like that a lot. For fairly straightforward, obvious reasons, most of these Discord servers are not public. So if you want to get into one of them, you'll have to ask around. Actually, there are a few of them that are public. But I would recommend, if you want to find a Discord community, if you're a right-wing furry and you're a right furry, you're not on Discord yet, you probably need to get on it. I would just ask around, ask your friends, and check out one. I mean, there's a small handful, and most of them I would recommend. So just ask around, and you could probably get a link if you can't find one in public. The bottom line is that if you're a centrist furry, if you're a non-political furry, and you're a right-wing furry, or if you're an alt furry, You don't have to be an alt furry to know that this furry subculture is just getting more and more repressive by the day. It's just getting worse and worse. You have a moral obligation to support these platforms that will support you. You have a moral obligation to go to these places that share your values. And really, it's actually kind of fun. So it's actually kind of fun getting started on the ground up. And I think in the long run, like say, for example, just to give you one illustration, like on Twitter, I have a Twitter following. That following is usually growing, but sometimes Twitter will go on suspension binges of right-wing people for just total bullshit reasons. And I'll lose subscribers. And it feels frustrating because like I'm working and working and working to build my audience, and then all of a sudden Twitter, which is a avowedly left-wing group out of San Francisco, will pull the rug right out from under you. And you're totally at their mercy. And I don't know about you, but I don't want to be at these people's mercy. I want to be in control of my own destiny. Going onto these platforms is a good way to do it. Now, it's not as busy. It's not as happening. But what you'll find is that, like, for example, on Furry Speech or on Minds, they don't, I don't run into those same problems. I don't feel like the administration is going to just pull the rug out from under me or take the football away a la Lucy and Charlie Brown or something like that. And that's a good feeling to have. So check out these three. I think these three are a pretty good place to start. Thanks for being with me again today.